This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Stay a while and listen.
Chapter 27, The Shadow in the Night. And our symbol is... How do I say this? The three-pronged Trolloc symbol? Triple Trolloc?
The three-panel Trolloc symbol.
Three-panel Trolloc
I like
symbol.
the panels. But it's we've seen them described as the symbols of the three tribes.
They are symbols of their Trolloc badges. I had forgotten about this part. I was glad to run into an unexpected action scene.
Yeah, I really like it. It sort of shows you the destructive potential of fireworks for the first time.
Yeah.
And
the random Trollocs, the Lanfear in this chapter, who has nothing to do with the Trollocs. It's
right.
Fane behind that. There's a bunch going on here.
There's a ton.
I do not understand it, Loyal said. I was winning most of the time, and then Denna came in and joined the game, and she won it all right back. Every toss. She called it a little lesson. What did she mean by that?
We open with Loyal getting
hustled by Denna.
I like that. Hustled. We've seen over and over again that he's pretty darn good at dice.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Does that mean he's lucky, or he just plays well? I have no idea how to play dice.
I think he plays well. The dice games I've seen that are a little more advanced than just like roll the dice and hope you get the higher number.
Yeah.
Basically, you roll the dice under a cup, and then you basically try and bluff the other people. It's more like poker than anything else, except you're playing with dice rather than cards. I imagine Loyal is just very good at figuring out based on, liar's dice is what it's called.
Oh.
And so there's all sorts of games you can play with dice that don't just involve like...
I've seen people play, but I just am not much of a gambler. I think it's stupid.
And so I imagine Deanna came in and was just, it doesn't matter what he was guessing when she's able to just switch the dice up.
Yeah.
I imagine him like... He's not so much good at the bluffing stuff as he is like good at counting cards. Except
Probably.
It's not cards, it's like dice.
And I kind of imagine an Ogier's sort of implacable demeanor would make them good at bluffing. So they're leaving from their meeting with Tom, and Rand is kind of lamenting that Tom doesn't want to be a part of his crazy life.
He was hoping for help. He went to Tom. He got really excited that he was going to get help, but Tom has a pretty stable life for now.
And he's itching for Ingtar to show up.
We get that first mention of the Trolloc being controlled by poles that's not actually being controlled by 5 men.
It's a real Trolloc.
It's a real Trolloc.
But it's a good disguise.
Yeah. In the last chapter, we saw him talk about how they had these Trollocs on poles, and they're like, the person who designed that has never seen a real Trolloc.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the lead-in to this chapter, where now not only do they look like real Trollocs, they are real Trollocs.
We're in Rand's head a little bit. He's thinking, he knows Fane will come for him sooner or later, and he's worried about waiting too long for Ingtar. And Loyal interrupts him. Rand, Loyal said suddenly, I don't think that's abruptly. The men let their poles clatter to the packed dirt street. And there was no time to think. Instinct brought the sword out of its sheath in a flashing arc. The moon rises over the lakes. The Trolloc staggered back with a bubbling cry, snarling even as it fell.
All right, so I imagine the moon rises over the lakes is a form that comes from unsheathing the sword and then slicing upwards at about a 45-degree angle in a moon-like shape.
That's what I imagined.
And and the gurgling makes me think he like cuts the throat of the Trolloc as it jumps at him.
Yeah, your classic cool guy samurai maneuver.
Just whoosh as it comes out of the. I'm making the hand motion, but as it comes out of the sheath, it just cuts right across the throat.
For an instant, everyone stood frozen. Then the men, the dark friends, they had to be, looked from the Trolloc lying in the street to Rand, with the sword in his hands and Loyal at his side. They turned and ran. So
yeah, no one wants to be in the middle of that business.
Nah, he doesn't bother chasing them or anything like that. Think we're not at that part of Rand's plot arc. Loyal, we have to get back to the inn. Hearn's alone, and he grunted as he was lifted into the air by a thick arm long enough to pin both of his to his chest.
I love this next scene because it's just watching Loyal be just incredibly strong and badass.
But as soon as the Trolloc grabs Rand from behind, Loyal removes the Trollocs arm, grabs him by the wrists.
Yeah, and just literally pries the Trollocs hand off of Rand's throat.
And they struggle for a few hot seconds, long enough for Rand to try to channel to help, before Loyal slams the Trolloc's head into a wall.
Which is the first time he kills.
Yeah.
This is really the first time he does any violence whatsoever.
He breaks the Trolloc's neck. With a sudden heave, Loyal threw the Trolloc aside so hard that the thing cartwheeled against the side of a building. It struck, head first, with a loud crack, and slid down the wall to lie with its neck twisted at an impossible angle.
And I noticed here, while Rand's clawing at the power, he gets a nice dose of the taint while being unable to get the power at all.
He doesn't manage to actually channel Sidene. He just reaches for it, and yeah, he only gets the taint.
One of the downfalls of not really having a good grasp of how to channel is simply being unable to get a hold of it when you want to.
Yeah. Oh, there's a good description here that I kind of wanted to read. Reluctantly, Rand formed the void. Sidene shone at him, pulled at him. Dimly, he seemed to recall a time when it had sung to him, but now it only drew him. A flower's perfume drawing a bee, a midden stench drawing a fly. I like the two-sided, like the taint and Sidene. Mm-hmm. The sweet light and the filthy darkness.
Yeah, driven by distant desperation, he tried again and again. And again, there was only the taint.
So he's just covering himself in it, basically.
Bathing in it, yeah.
And Loyal's a little shaken up after killing the Trolloc.
Kind of the way Rand was after he killed his first Trolloc. Way back in the Eye of the World, in the Two Rivers.
That's right. It took me a second to remember. In the house, he accidentally kills it, more or less.
He kills Narg, the Trolloc, when Narg jumps at him.
Narg smart. And Rand sees another. Against the sun, Rand could not make out the details, but it appeared to be another group of men with a huge puppet, coming toward Loyal and him. But he can see that it's a real Trolloc.
Right. And these are all of Fane's Trollocs and Fane's Dark Friends. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when we see Trollocs, they're under the control of the Forsaken, usually Ishamael in the first 3 books, but there are other Forsaken that send Trollocs and Myrddraal after Rand at various points in time. Lanfear actually ends up sending some Trollocs to help him.
Oh, that's right.
I think it's in the stone. So whenever I see Trollocs, I like to sort of make sure I know who they're being controlled by. And in this case, it's Fane's Trollocs.
Yeah. Rand even notes at one point that he recognizes some of them, which I thought was a little interesting.
I think it was just while he was running around in a circle.
Oh.
Yeah, so basically they're being herded from place to place in the city. And as he's dodging around, he notices he sees the same few Trollocs a couple of times because he's being herded in a smaller and smaller circle. And so as he avoids them.
Gotcha. I didn't catch
They're basically
that.
hunting him by scent.
But slowly, they're forced east. So they're being slowly pushed out of Kyria and Central, out of the Foregate at least, until they get to the edge of the city.
They're basically being pushed away from people where they can't get help, and the Trollocs can come out into the open.
And Rand's looking around, and he doesn't see any doors that would stop a Trolloc anyway, so they continue on. Rand, Loyal said finally, there's nowhere else to go when they reach the eastern edge of the Foregate. Once they push us out there, Loyal said, they won't have to worry about who sees them.
And so about a mile away, he sees some walls, and he's like, hey, let's run over there, which we know is the Illuminator's chapter house.
Those walls will probably stop a Trolloc.
Yeah.
Of course they don't, but...
this is well, that's because the door's open.
Yeah.
They just walk right in.
I noticed that, and I was wondering if Lanfear does something. Because I forgot to mention, they run into Selene, like, right at this moment.
Yeah.
In the chapter.
I assume she's been watching them this whole time.
That would make sense.
At least for a chunk of time, because she pops in. She likes to watch Rand. And so I think she sees him encountering Trollocs and just reveals herself.
What trouble have you gotten yourself into now? Said a familiar woman's voice. There was suddenly a spicy perfume in the air. I always wonder what that smells like. Rand stares, slack-jawed. Selene shows up at a highly dangerous moment again.
The patrons are saying, clingy stalker ex-girlfriend.
That's pretty much what's happening.
He's like, "What? How did you get here? What are you doing here?"
As obvious of a trope as it is. There are Trollocs after us. Rand's like all agitated. So I saw. Her voice was dry, yet cool and composed. I came to find you, and I find you allowing Trollocs to herd you like sheep? Can the man who possesses the Horn of Valir let himself be treated so?
She's just not concerned at all, ever.
Yeah, well, why would she be?
Right. Oh, totally. She can handle a few Trollocs, but it's just this... It's such this obvious, out-of-place emotion during all of this. It's like, terrible danger, and she's like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care. Celine tries to push him into the void, as she does pretty frequently.
Seek the oneness and be calm. One who would be great must always be calm. The Trollocs might hear you, Rand says. I don't want greatness. He thought he heard an irritated grunt from her. So they walk across what I'm imagining is like a big field up to this big stone wall. Or it's not stone, I guess. Rand said it was plastered wood.
Well, once he gets close, he realizes it's basically a plaster and lathe wall.
They're looking for a way in or a way up and over.
And I assume this place is so far out because fireworks are dangerous, and you generally launch them outside of the city.
And they don't want anyone nearby.
Yeah, they're hiding their secrets.
And here's kind of why I thought Lanfear might have done something. When they're searching for a way over or in through the wall, Lanfear cuts off Loyal while he's talking and says, if he wants to go in, Alanton, he needs a door, such as that one. And she just gestures to what I presume is the only unlocked door in the whole compound. There's no evidence, but I mean, when Rand gets to the other side of it, he says there's a place for a bar, but no bar. It just isn't locked.
I wonder if she destroys the bar.
That's kind of what I thought, like that she unlocked it and just gives them a way in.
That would make sense to me, because I was thinking it might be some Taviran twisting that he happens to just be near the door, but it makes more sense that she's like, oh, you need a way in? That door's unlocked. And she uses the one power to make that happen.
Even with her telling him, Rand was not certain it was a door, but when she strode to it and pulled, it opened.
I don't think she creates the door, though.
No.
Do you? No. Because it's like got brackets on the inside. And
assumed it's like kind of hidden, like not obviously a door.
Yeah, it's not like just in a hole in the wall.
Yeah. More warnings from Loyal. I've heard the Illuminators kill intruders. They keep their secrets hard and fast, Rand. Do we see that happen? Does anyone ever die for finding out the Illuminator secrets?
No, because this Illuminator chapter pretty much gets shut down because of tonight. And then the other one gets taken over by the Shan-Chan, and because they have the skylights, they just shut it down and make all of the Illuminators Dako Vale.
Yeah.
So we don't see... The Illuminator chapter houses pretty much just get shut down pretty quick.
Rand says, I'm sorry I got you into this, Celine. Danger adds a certain something, she said softly, and so far you handle it well. Shall we see what we find?
I wonder what would she ever, do you think, help him if he got in over his head in these situations?
She wouldn't let him die.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know she would help herself, but I don't know about helping him.
I think her design right now is to co-opt the dragon.
Sure. But I think she definitely doesn't want to, like, reveal herself. And she wants him to be strong enough to prove that he'd get out of it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot she can do when she can channel and he can't really tell. So she can do things like make the bar locking a door disappear so he has someplace to escape.
Right.
Or, trip somebody when they're coming for him.
I'm not totally clear on what's happening in her mind, but I think she mentions it later, but I think from the beginning here she wants to rule the world with Rand. Especially when she finds out the Choden Call are still around. The access keys.
But at this point, she doesn't know the Choden Call are still around, so I'm not sure.
Well, the access keys, not the...
Right. She definitely saw the statues, but
yeah.
She may not know if the access keys are still around.
Although, I guess you could still operate them without the access keys.
I don't think so. I think it's impossible. I think they'd burn... They just don't have the buffers in them. that you need. You have to access them through the access keys. And she loves Lewis Theron.
It would be the only way to escape the Dark One and her past.
Yeah, that's a good point. So they sneak in through the door, the open door, and they overhear Aludra and Tammuz. So this is where we get to meet Aludra for the first time.
Yeah. He pulled back into the shadows of an alley as a man and a woman appeared, walking slowly across the open space. She's basically asking Tammuz if everything is prepared and ready, and are all the doors definitely locked? And he says yes and yes, definitely. My brow is furrowed. He could have not done it. It could be as simple as that. He could have just be shitty at his job.
He could be.
But it seems like everything was probably done correctly. Wild speculation, guys, but I think Lanfear did something to the door.
Yeah, we never hear him say yes, all the gates and doors are barred, but he's like, she asks as they're walking away.
Yeah, the gates and doors, they are all barred?
And what Tammuz shows up later, he's the one who's coming after Aludra when Matt rescues her in the barn. So there's that group of men that show up, and Matt brains them with his staff.
Yeah.
And that's how he recruits Aludra to help him out.
Oh.
That is Tammuz. So that's this guy.
I didn't realize he survives that long.
Yeah. So he's still
Surprised
around.
he still has a job after this.
Yeah, he definitely lost his job after this.
So they're sneaking across this courtyard where all these fireworks are set up, filled with anxiety, creeping across and accidentally sweating every time they accidentally bump into something. Rand's watching the buildings. The windows remained empty, though. Rand was just breathing a sigh of relief as they approached the low wall and the alleys and buildings behind it, when Loyal brushed against another rack, standing right beside the wall. It held 10 soft-looking sticks, as long as Rand's arms, with thin streams of smoke rising from their tips. It's like a type of long grass, a punk, or a cattail. Basically. You can light them and they'll just smolder for a long time.
There's an ember at the tip of them.
Yeah.
So they just have that so they don't have to have like coal and grass or something like that.
Right. It's just a way to keep a hot ember for a long time so they can light the fuses at any time.
I wonder if this accident is what leads to Aludra inventing matches, because having the embers burning caused this destruction.
It could very well be.
And so she was like, I need some way to be able to create fire quickly without having it just sitting around. And so the fact that this accident happened led her to experiment with a way to create sticks, as she calls them.
Maybe also seeing part of a building be vaporized gives her a little idea,
For the guns?
Yeah.
Possibly. I think she was working on that for longer.
But anyway, back to the rack filled with smoldering punks. The rack made hardly a sound when it fell, the smoldering stick sprawling across one of the fuses. With a crackling hiss, the fuse burst into flame, and the flame raced towards one of the tall tubes. Rand goggled for an instant. Then he tried to whisper a shout. Behind the wall! Celine made an angry noise when he bore her to the ground behind the wall, but he did not care. I wondered while I was reading this if Lanfear knows what fireworks are. Not that she would be unaccustomed to explosions, but chemical explosions?
Yeah, I don't think she's totally surprised by them.
She doesn't seem blown away or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse the
nice. This whole chapter leads to cannons and weapons, and I think Aludra needs to be put on a position to make them. The Tavirness going on here is definitely a result of Rand needing better weapons.
Rand is worried the whole thing is going to blow, but there's only a hollow thump that he felt to the ground as much as heard. Cautiously, he lifted himself off Celine enough to peer around the edge of the wall.
So this is just a single firework, and that it's being launched. So it's still pointed up into the sky and everything.
Yeah. So you just hear the thunk. A trickle of smoke was leaking from the top of one of the tubes. That was all. He shook his head wonderingly. If that's all there is to it, with a crash like thunder, a huge flower of red and white bloomed high in the now dark sky, then slowly began drifting away in sparkles. As he goggled at it, the lighted building erupted with noise. Shouting men and women filled the windows, staring and pointing.
Is that a night flower?
I guess that's what they call it. I know they have specific names for the different things.
With a firework set off, the illuminators come running to see what the hell happened.
And they try to hide.
Now, I think Celine does something here, again.
She definitely does. because she says something weird. He pressed Loyal and Celine back against the wall, hoping they looked like just another shadow. Be still and silent, he whispered. It's our only hope. Sometimes, Celine said quietly, if you are very still, no one can see you at all. She did not sound the least bit worried.
This reminds me of when Egwene is meeting with Rand and the White Tower Aes Sedai show up, and he has her hide behind a screen of Saidine.
Yeah?
And they end up sensing her because they sense her ability to channel, but he says, don't move. I'm just going to put up like a blank screen in front of you. And he says, and I think Celine's saying the same thing, basically.
Oh, when is that?
That's much later. That's like, I want to say Lord of Chaos, because it's right before he gets kidnapped and put in the box. So I imagine it's just the same trick of bending light around.
Well, if she does anything, it works. People are running by. Nobody sees them. Rand stopped breathing as the man came over to right the toppled stand. Pressed back in the shadows, against the wall, he could see Tammuz's back and shoulder. All the man had to do was turn his head, and he could not miss seeing Rand and the others. I'm imagining they're like really close, but he just sees a dark shadow.
It's just an illusion. And of course, Ludra thinks Tammuz messed up.
Yeah.
And I like how Rand says, we can't expect any more luck tonight, he whispered. And Celine says, it is said great men make their own luck. She's making things happen.
Will you stop that? He told her wearily. Great men thing again.
He thinks about how sexy she is.
Over and over.
Yeah.
It's already happened in this chapter. I just skipped right on over it.
It's just sort of interspersed. Whenever she's around, he's just a little kind of a horny teenager. In the alleyway, there's these 3 Trollocs that are sort of coming towards the door. And there's a woman looking out the window, able to see them.
Yeah.
Is that woman anybody, or is she just a random bystander?
I think she's just a random bystander. She's just the person that sees them first.
She's not like a dark friend. She's not like Lanfear or anything like that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Rand shifted to look over the Ogier's shoulder. Beyond open space in the alleyway that led to the barless door, 3 Trollocs were peering cautiously out of the shadows, toward the lighted windows. One woman was standing at a window. She did not seem to see the Trollocs. So, Celine said quietly, it becomes a trap. These people may kill you if they take you, and the Trollocs surely will. Perhaps you can slay the Trollocs, she says. Perhaps you can stop the people from killing you. You may not want greatness, but it will take a great man to do these things. And Rand, of course, picks option C. He does none of that.
Her just obsession with greatness. She immediately goes to, your greatness will make me happy.
Perhaps I should leave you to find your own way for a time. If you'll not take greatness when it is in your grasp, perhaps you deserve to die. Weird thing for a lady you just met to say.
It does make me wonder if she would have let him die, just suffer the consequences, if he's not powerful enough. I know we were saying earlier that she would protect him.
Try again in the next life.
Yeah.
I think she's thinking to herself about it. She's frustrated that she's not getting what she wants quickly.
She does seem to be manipulating him into these situations where he's like, has no choice but to either use the power or find some clever way.
Do something amazing or die.
She's trying to force him to be great.
Rand thinks about killing the Trollocs with Saidine, but he doesn't know if he can. There has to be a way. Not the Void. Not Saidine.
I find it interesting that he is avoiding the Void. It seems like, I guess he just thinks that in the Void he can't avoid channeling.
Or it's harder to because he's closer to it. I think it's starting to freak him out to go into the Void.
Even though he probably could take out 3 Trollocs with the sword.
I would say yes.
Because he already had 3 Trollocs come after him in Fane's camp when he got the horn back.
Yeah.
And he was using the Void then, and he took them out. That's how he got the name Shadow Killer from the wolves.
One of the Trollocs took a step out of the shadows, and the others followed, gathering themselves. As from a distance, Rand heard the woman at the window cry out, and Loyal shouted something. Because they know that they had established that if they move from where they are, they'll both... the Trollocs and the Illuminators will see them. Mm-hmm. Without thinking, Rand was on his feet. He had to stop the Trollocs somehow, or they would run him down, and Loyal, and Celine. He snatched one of the smoldering sticks and hurled himself at the nearest tube. It tilted, started to fall over, and he caught the square wooden base. The tube pointed straight at the Trollocs. They slowed uncertainly. The woman at the window screamed, and Rand touched the smoldering end of the stick to the fuse, right where it joined the tube. The hollow thump came immediately. and the thick wooden base slammed against him, knocking him down. A roar like a thunderclap broke the night, and blinding burst of light tore away the dark.
I have to think that woman at least knows enough about fireworks, is probably an illuminator, and knows enough about fireworks to know just how much of a disaster that's going to be. Because she screams as soon as
the Trollocs don't know what that is, so they're just like, what are you doing?
Or they don't understand the consequences.
The woman that sees them screams immediately because she knows what's going to happen. Also, he could have accidentally set all those off, and if he knocked a bunch of them over, he could have just blown the whole thing to smithereens.
Oh, I think he did set off a lot.
I thought he just set off the one.
I think, okay, so he definitely sets off the one and points it at the Trollocs, but I think that whole corner of the building goes up.
Oh, I mean, any number of those buildings could be filled with powder and stuff, too.
Yeah. I don't think one firework would blow a hole in the building the way he describes.
Oh, yeah. I'll read this next part, but you're right, I think. Blinking, Rand staggered to his feet, coughing in thick, acrid smoke, ears ringing. He stared in amazement. Half the tubes and all of the racks lay on their sides, and one corner of the building beside which the Trollocs had stood was simply gone, flames licking at ends of planks and rafters. Of the Trollocs, there was no sign. So he could have knocked over a bunch.
Well, so what I think happened is he took the one, pointed it at the Trollocs, which were in the corner of a building, with a bunch of fireworks around them.
Yeah.
And so he set off the firework. It launches itself to the corner of the building.
Explodes and blows up more stuff.
Blows up all of those fireworks in that corner, and that takes out the whole corner of the building, vaporizing the Trollocs.
Yeah.
One single firework, I think you'd still have pieces left.
Yeah, that's a good assessment.
And the building would probably be damaged, but not destroyed.
There'd be Trolloc shrapnel.
But one firework is definitely enough to set off all the rest. And yeah, with all those fireworks in a narrow, confined space, I'm surprised the whole building didn't go up. I mean, have you ever YouTube videos of firework factories on fire?
No, God.
It's pretty fun and pretty horrifying.
I mean, it must all go at once. Like, once one thing blows up.
It goes, you'd be surprised how long it takes for everything to go up. But when there's a fire, it's awesome. There's definitely big explosions, multiple big explosions.
Through the ringing in his ears, Rand heard shouts from the illuminators in the building. He broke into a tottering run, lumbered into the alley. Halfway down it, he stumbled over something and realized it was his cloak. "Where's Celine?" Rand demanded. "She went back, Rand. I tried to grab her, and she slipped right out of my hands." I don't know what that's about. But she either leaves his cloak behind, or she travels out.
Oh, I think she just runs off. And then travels once she's out of sight. I don't think there's anything like special that happens.
Because, yeah, I assume she travels out. Because I assume that between now and when Rand makes it back to the inn, she disguises herself as an old woman and drops the note.
I'm nodding.
To the innkeeper. Because when Rand gets there, the innkeeper says, "Oh, it just arrived 15 minutes ago."
And we frequently see Celine disguise herself as like an old woman or somebody else just to drop off a message.
Mm-hmm. Loyal pulls him out of the door, saying they can't stay. He can't go after her. "I tried to stop her," Loyal said. There was a long silence. "We really couldn't have done anything."
So where does he think she went? She went back. Back where?
Into the compound. So they're going down this narrow alley, and I'm imagining like a courtyard with a bunch of hallways going off from it. But in the center of the courtyard's all these fireworks. And there's like outbuildings and various whatevers. But Rand says like, "Okay, go." And Loyal and Celine go down this alley to where there's a door. He blows the Trollocs to smithereens, turns around, and goes back, and Celine's just not there. Loyal said she ran off. I imagine she has to find a private places to travel in and out of, if only for a second. Otherwise, people will see her travel, and that hasn't happened yet.
Right. Yeah, I imagine she just slips out of Loyal's grasp, turns a corner, and then like makes a gateway.
Is there a flash of light? If you make a gateway in a dark room, does it illuminate the room?
I mean, sure, there's light coming through the gateway.
Yeah, good point. If you're in a dark room and you open a gateway to a dark room,
Is there a flash
like
of
does
light?
the gateway itself have light?
I don't think so.
Jeez, I have this thing stuck in my head that the Scroll of Town portals from Diablo 2, that is what a gateway looks like to me. It's in like an electric oval. I've seen fan art and stuff, and it looks nothing like that. And like you even said once that it's definitely a square the way it opens up, but I just see that. I just see it that way.
Stay a while and listen. Yeah, I guess they do describe like there's a bright vertical line that comes down. So I guess that would be illuminating. I guess not. Once the gateway's made, it's not going to give off any light.
The reason I'm asking is because if Selena's doing this repeatedly, like more or less in public, like traveling in and out, she would just need to like walk into a closet for a second and she could travel out. But what I'm wondering is, would there be like a flash of light under the door?
I mean, I think that would be a decent visual effect in the TV show.
Yeah. By the way, Sony, if you need an address to mail checks to for all these great ideas, just shoot me over an email.
Find our Patreon page, and
we should make a bracket that's just for the Sony producers.
That's something to keep an eye out and see if it's actually illuminating stuff, or if it's just a silvery, shiny, reflective light.
Yeah, I guess it's because like around the time World War II, around the time Diablo 2 came out, I was like also reading these books, so I just have that image.
So they head back to the inn, the Defender of the Dragon Wall, and the innkeeper held out his tray with a sealed parchment. Rand took it and stared at the white seal, a crescent moon and stars. Of course, is Lanfear's sigil, which you see in the chapter headers.
Who left this? When? He asked the innkeeper. An old woman, my lord, not a quarter of an hour gone. A servant, though she did not say from what house. Quayle smiled, as if inviting confidences. Thank you, Rand said, still staring at the seal. The innkeeper watched him go upstairs with a thoughtful look. Hurin has no idea what happened. I found this kind of funny. You were along with the Gleeman, my lord. Is he well?
Right, it was like such a long time ago.
Rand doesn't even like bother explaining.
Wait, what?
Rand gave a start. What? Tom? Yeah, he's, yeah.
Interesting thought that even if the gateway did have a flash of light, she could put up a mask of mirrors to hide that.
That's a good point. It wouldn't have to. Yeah, secret cow level. I just beat that recently. That was fun. Did a playthrough of Diablo 2. But that's what I imagine a gateway looks like. Even though I know it's wrong, I just like it.
Well, and it has a similar mechanic where it starts as a vertical line and then sort of rotates into an oval rather than rotating into a square or a rectangle.
Yeah.
Like if you actually see the animation in the game, it's very similar to how it's described.
Am I like way out in left field? I'm wondering if how people visualize the gateway. Is it just like an open hole in the air that you can walk through?
So we're getting a thin, bright rectangle.
Everyone says
a square with a shimmery outline.
Yeah.
A rectangle version of the portal.
Man, I don't know how I missed that. I guess because I already had that kind of, that animation in my head and it just like fits well enough.
Brains are funny things. We make a connection and we follow that connection over and over again, even when it's not the right connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get that same like, oh, portal, and you follow the connection to Diablo 2 portal.
Yeah.
And you just never really read the description and reform the image in your head.
He broke open the seal with his thumb and read, When I think I know what you are going to do, you do something else. You are a dangerous man. Perhaps it will not be long before we are together again. Think of the horn. Think of glory. And think of me, for you are always mine.
Are all women crazy?
That's aggressive. Yeah, that's what he... Again, it bore no signature, but the flowing hand itself. Are all women crazy? Rand demanded of the ceiling. Hurin shrugged. Rand threw himself into the other chair, the one sized for an Ogier. His feet dangled above the floor, but he did not care. He stared at the blanket-covered chest under the edge of Loyal's bed. Think of the glory.
The think of the glory, I thought, was him remembering what Lanfear.
Yeah. He may also feel a little tempted. Like he has all this responsibility. There are these crazy monsters in the night literally coming after him, and he could just blow the horn. I mean, I know he doesn't really want to, but it's sitting there. He's sick of this. That's kind of the way I was seeing it. He doesn't want to deal with
it with
this.
him,
Yeah.
He didn't have it on him when he's in a dangerous situation.
Though it'd be, there'd be like more heroes than there were Trollocs, but whatever.
Yeah, hey, that'll work. I'm not sure it would work, though.
Will it not work if someone's thinking about glory when they blow the horn?
I always thought that might corrupt the horn. Somehow make it available for the dark side to use. Maybe it wouldn't work. So I think of the horn as being linked to the pattern and to the weaving. And so in a lot of ways, it's not that something bad would happen if you blew it thinking of glory. It's just that somehow the pattern would prevent you from blowing it if you were thinking of glory. Just like you can't find the eye of the world. Unless
you have need.
Right. It's one of those things where, just like Taviran, it seems to be tied to the pattern itself. And so, destiny and fate means if you're thinking of glory, you're just not going to be able to blow it. And Rand was able to track it down because he's looking for the dagger. And Ingtar is never able to find it because he's thinking of the glory.
Ooh.
And so it's stolen before Ingtar shows up because Ingtar doesn't deserve to have possession of the horn.
Oh, this is a good theory. This is going. And he is really agitated in the next chapter when he's talking to Perrin. He's saying, like, tell me what the wolves told you again. Mm-hmm. And Perrin's like, I told you 10 times. And he's like, tell me again.
Yeah.
I have to find the horn. He's like freaking out.
I assume it's orders from the dark that he has to find it, or he'll be tortured or killed, or basically.
Probably.
Yeah. I've been messing with a Cafe Press website for merchandise. It's actually pretty easy.
Yeah. It'd be cool to actually have some merch. We've been talking about it forever. But
it would be. It's not the cheapest stuff around, that's for sure. I think there are some other websites that take a smaller percentage, but the quality doesn't look like it's as good. I've been looking around, but I think for the most part, Cafe Press is going to be the way to go. It's sort of a multi-layered website. It's got a lot of cruft into it. Some sort of...
Cruft?
Yeah, just a lot of software cruft. A lot of layers. A lot of different options that really don't need to be there.
What is cruft? I've never heard that word before.
You've never heard the word cruft before?
Cruft. I'm Googling it right now. Badly designed, unnecessarily complicated. Unwanted code or software.
Cruft.
Wow, that's specific. Noun. Computing. Informal.
It might be a mostly programmer term.
I think so. I mean, the first definition that pops up says unwanted code or software.
Yeah.
Cruft. It's a good word.
C-R-U-F-T. Cruft. Good job. All right, next word in our spelling challenge. Welcome to the Spelling Bee podcast.
It's going to be a great time. English. Now, there's something that has a lot of cruft.
No kidding. Human. It's a pretty decent insult. You're human cruft.
You are unnecessary code in the Matrix.
We're working on chapter 27, right?
Yeah. I think we're going to do 27 and 28 tonight.
Sounds good, Patrick.
But we might take a break in the middle.
Yeah, I think dinner's being made upstairs, so we're probably going to do an episode and then go eat dinner and then come back and do another one.
I feel so privileged. I'll just spend some time in the office, and then I'm going to go have fajitas that are being made for me.
Oh, isn't it great?
I know, I love it. I don't usually get out of the work. Julia makes me chop and do the mundane tasks.
Oh, sure. Most of the time I do.
I mean, I volunteer. She doesn't make me.
Uh-huh.
But
oh, this is
I
just
prefer to do the dishes. She's a bit of a better cook.
Yeah. Well, she is a cook, isn't she?
She is a cook.
Yeah.
A professional cook.
When you're dating someone who cooks for a living, me and Jessica just have a few recipes that we've put together.
Yeah. I keep expecting her to get sick of, like, I keep expecting her to have a day where she gets home from work and is like, I don't feel like cooking. Can you do it? But it keeps not happening. You got to take some part of the work, you know.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?